definitely think there's a few out there that are better over the others. GoDaddy's one of the ones that I think we're all familiar with. I think is improved. HostGator, you mentioned that is one that. What do you guys feel about HostGator as being one of the legacy products out there?
Well,
You know,
I started with HostGator, I think 10, 12 years ago. It
Yeah.
wasn't cheap. It was like $10 instead of one from my perspective. And as soon as you got some traffic in there, you would reach a limitation, a CPU limitation. So your website will go slow directly, which is good because they did that to protect the other customers on that server. So overall, thinking about the bigger picture, they did a good thing, but yeah, I had to pay a bit more at that point to get more
Yeah.
performance.
I think that's it too. Like when you look at some really good companies out there, where you get the dollar up to $10 kind of cost, is it really worth your time and aggravation? Because like those 3 support calls out of the year could just be like 3 hours, and I think people that would spend $20 to $30, for example, would be okay with that, knowing that they get those 3 hours back in their life. You know what I mean? So, but do you guys have any? Carlos, do you have any bad use cases? I know you've been doing this for a long time, and
I
you don't have
mean,
to name names, but like, do you have any like bad use cases?
what, like some horror stories? I would say, when you call the big hosting companies, they serve a lot of applications, a lot of customers. So a lot of times the texts that you get are unexperienced. They're reading off a script. So sometimes that can be a little bit challenging, right? And it almost feels like you always get the same canned responses, if you have a WordPress site and it's running slow, hey, make sure your plugins are updated, right? That's usually the first thing that you hear. They're not going to go in there and tell you which plugin is causing the problem, right? That's more like where the specialist hosting companies come in, right? Like your WP Engine, your Pressable, your Kingsta, they're going to be able to go in there and tell you. Something else I wanted to touch on too is in terms of speed, it's great to run what I like to call a vanilla WordPress site in a $10 a month plan, right? But as you add more plugins to that website, like WooCommerce, subscriptions, WooAutomate, right? That footprint is now larger, requires more memory, more resources, more disk IO. And that's when you're really going to see your site start to crawl.